The Twilight Zone is full of iconic and classic episodes, but it also has some divisive and not-so-good stories, among them one starring Burt Reynolds and in which he parodied Marlon Brando. One of the most influential TV shows of all time is the sci-fi horror anthology series The Twilight Zone, created and hosted by Rod Serling. The success and legacy of The Twilight Zone have led to it being revived 3 times and getting a film adaptation, but the show's original run is the one that housed many classic and terrifying episodes, though some weren't exactly great. The Twilight Zone premiered on CBS in 1959 and stuck around for 5 seasons, ending in 1964. The Twilight Zone has been praised for its combination of sci-fi, horror, and drama, its creativity, and the performances of its different actors, while also serving as the show that launched the careers of many. Among the now well-known actors who appeared in The Twilight Zone was Burt Reynolds, who appeared in the Season 4 episode, The Bard, in which he parodied Marlon Brando, with the episode not being exactly the audience's favorite. Burt Reynolds parodied Marlon Brando in The Twilight Zone Season 4 finale, The Bard. The Bard was written by Rod Serling. The Twilight Zone The Bard Burt Reynolds. Directed by David Butler, The Bard aired on May 23, 1963, and it was part of the show season that changed the format to hour-long episodes. The Bard is more of a satire episode, shooting shots at the TV industry and bringing in historical figures. Surely, while it still fits the show's sci-fi tone to an extent, The Bard is unlike many other The Twilight Zone episodes. The Bard follows Julius K. Moomer, Jack Weston, an incompetent screenwriter with one too many unproduced scripts and desperate to sell one. When his agent, Gerald Hugo, Henry Lasco, mentions a new TV show, Julius insists on writing a pilot for it. Gerald doesn't think Julius can do it as the show is about black magic, a topic Julius isn't knowledgeable about, but he convinces Gerald that he will do his research and write a pilot. While researching, Julius is drawn to a book about black magic, with which he accidentally summons William Shakespeare, John Williams. Shakespeare has a genie-like role in The Bard, as he's at the command of the conjurer, and thus has to provide any service to Julius. Julius uses Shakespeare to write a script, which is later accepted by the TV producers. However, trouble arises when the Bard himself is annoyed at Julius taking sole credit for the scripts, but stays when Julius tells him he will lose his chance at Hollywood fame if he leaves and will be forgotten. Shakespeare attends a rehearsal and is horrified at the changes made to his script, and assaults the lead actor, Rocky Rhodes, Reynolds, before leaving. At the end of the episode, Julius summons various historical figures to help him write a TV special on American history. Reynolds appears in the 3rd act of The Bard, and though it's not a main role, he stands out thanks to his very obvious parody of Marlon Brando. Reynolds perfectly captured the signature moves, accent, and mannerisms of Brando, whom he was often compared to in real life, and one of the characters even mentions that Rhodes starred in A Streetcar Named Desire, which Brando starred in 1951. Reynolds and Brando had one of the most famous feuds in film history, and The Bard is considered by many as the start of it. Why The Twilight Zone's The Bard episode is still so divisive. The Bard is considered by many as one of the worst Twilight Zone episodes. The Bard is the lowest-rated Twilight Zone episode on IMDb and is often found on lists of the worst franchise episodes. Despite its sci-fi-oriented story with the summoning of dead people, The Bard painfully leaned more towards comedy and didn't do it right. Weston's performance didn't feel fitting with the show and was too exaggerated, and to top it off, the episode added cartoonish sound effects that completely messed with the tone of the story and the show. The problem with The Bard is that its comedy didn't land and it ended up being unfunny and at times uncomfortable to watch due to its performances, dialogue, sound effects, and the story in general. The Twilight Zone went out of its comfort zone with The Bard, but it didn't go as well as they probably expected, though Burt Reynolds' parody of Marlon Brando will always be remembered.